wish I was Drake now!
Another way Nickelodeon celebrated the Fairly OddParents' 10th anniversary in 2011 was with a live-action movie based on the series, A Fairly Odd Movie. Grow Up, Timmy Turner, the world's first live-action fugue state. Drake Bell plays Timmy Turner as a 23-year-old man who has never grown up and still hangs out with Cosmo and Wanda. Story of my life, but I digress. One day, he sees Tootie has grown up into a pretty environmentalist, and he falls in love with her based on superficial looks and actions, which the movie states is a sign that he's growing up and is going to lose his fairies soon. This is all just wrong. The story alone completely spits in the face of the most important moments of its source material. The CGI on Cosmo and Wanda is somehow even worse than in the Jimmy Timmy Power Hours, which were 5 to 7 years old by that point, and the only actor who gives a good performance is Darren Norris playing Filthy in live action. It's kind of funny actually.
The want ads?
Really? Ooh, they need unskilled workers at that new dynamite factory. Sounds exciting and dangerous.
But that's about the funniest this movie gets. The second most joyous moments in the movie are whenever I see Cosmo, Wanda, and Poof in their 2D forms. They're live action for a bit and Cosmo's played by Jason Alexander for some reason. They had a perfect opportunity to use Skilo for the trailer music, but instead Cosmo's getting upset! I didn't bother watching the 2 sequels. I draw the line here. They're not even really animated or canon to the show, and I already know how the third one ends, so I don't have any reason to sit through these. Someday in the future, but not within this decade. Meet the OddParents aired on December 29th, 2011, and only one holdover from season 7 aired in 2012. So for a while, it did seem like the Fairly OddParents had ended again. But then, out of nowhere, they were picked up for a 9th season of 26 episodes, which began airing on March 23rd, 2013. It had been 5 years since Fairly Odd Baby, so you'd think they'd learned from their mistakes and put together a better game plan for how they wanted the show to continue. No.
When are they gonna get to the fireworks factory?
Say hello to Sparky, a fairy dog that no one wants, but Timmy wants him because he's a dog. Sparky causes trouble, that's his thing. Unlike Poof, where they at least gave him some good powers, and he could sometimes be a hero who could push the story forward in a positive way, Sparky only exists to make situations more difficult, or spout really bad jokes. I'm going to be honest, his voice is my favorite thing about him, and given how everyone feels about it, that's sad. I'm not a fan of his design, he doesn't look like a character that fits into this show. The running gag of him having a criminal record, I have no idea where they were going with it, and he rarely ever bounces off anyone but Timmy in a meaningful way. He's just a new character for the sake of having a new character. While I'm on the subject of lame recurring trends, Filthy's hatred of Dinkelberg was funny at first, but no longer has any bite to it. Early on, you could understand why he'd have no interest getting along with a guy who's never gone through any marital or financial hardships. But now they play up how Dinkelberg is a completely normal dude, and Filthy's an asshole who hates his neighbor for no reason. They literally do a joke where Dinkelberg gives Filthy a pile of cash, and Filthy still hates him for no reason. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't want to watch one character hating another without any motivation. I guess it's nice to finally see the Fairly OddParents being animated in widescreen full time. Took them long enough. Even though my problems with the art evolution only seem to be getting worse. The movements also aren't as snappy as before, they're a little more fluid, which is a good thing in a way, but in another, they're continuing to forget little things that made the show work in ways that could have otherwise completely destroyed it. They're also amping up the gross out humor, and not doing anything else to innovate how the series feels aside from doubling the picture quality. Oh, but we are now a decade removed from the show's peak, and they really want you to remember that they've made it to the 2010s, and that's amazing because YOLO, you only live once. They're more willing to use more modern lingo now, a lot of which is already dated, and reference hilarious internet memes that are considered vintage classics now, sure, but how about writing your own jokes? That would be nice. It's not just Sparky and Filthy now, all of the characters are walking jokes. Cosmo will randomly say something offensive to Wanda because that's all they know what to do with him. Mr. Crocker is becoming more dependent on his mother for his jokes to work, and the novelty of Dark Laser and whatever novelty there was in Foop have faded out now. They're just kept around because they can still deliver easy jokes. You can make a bingo sheet out of how many worn out gags they have now. Sorry if this analysis of Season 9 seems to be going on, but the season itself goes on, and it keeps getting worse. They made a second Foop out of Sparky and it has an angry British accent again. For heaven's sake, just stop. This is pathetic. Which episodes stand as the best? That surely wouldn't be hard, but Turning into Turner gets pretty close. It looks like it's gonna be a knockoff of Presto Changeo, with Crocker wanting to turn himself into a Timmy Turner clone, but he accidentally turns himself into a hybrid of Timmy and his mother, and suffice to say, the absurdity sells itself. The Past and the Furious isn't too bad either. It's a time travel journey through different historical eras, basically a bigger version of Father Time. It earns its extra runtime by rewarding you for paying attention to little things in the story, and it's far and away the better Father Time knockoff this season. Time for the bottom 6. Scary God Couple is about this is wrong, and guess what, the story isn't funny or logical in the context of the show. Gone FLUSHIN might have one of the worst set pieces in the show's history. I don't want to spend this long in a sewer, and the sacred tome of filthy flushing random things down the toilet jokes has been sullied. I hate to say. App Trap is an incredibly dull, often condescending look into the world of smartphones. I know a lot of people are weirded out by Simpsons characters using iPads and stuff, but at least they don't make fun of their audience for using everyday devices.
Sparky, we have to get to a time before technology existed. A time before fun.
Like the 90s. Got it.
Last I checked, Timmy got his fairy godparents in the 90s. And there was technology in the 90s. Love at First Bark is Romeo and Juliet with dogs. Only if Filthy was just there as Montag to make it more irritating. That's the best word to describe it. There's no actual romance or character arcs, just irritating gags. Finding Emo was about Timmy wishing to enter the hip and relevant world of emo culture for a new crush who's seemingly just pretty, while Cosmo and Wanda's dynamic is explored further. The second half of this is joyless. You already have Emotion Commotion, which did emo stuff, but in a way more timeless manner. And Cosmo didn't sing about tractors back then, which is always a bonus. Desperate Without Housewives is revolting. You know Love Struck, an episode that already had a black and white view on gender roles? Why don't we do it again in Season 9, with characters that don't have any real chemistry with one another? Then add aliens! This aired on a children's network in 2014, and everyone was okay with it. That is appalling. And yet they somehow got another season.
Excuse me, I need a moment alone.
A new girl moves to Dimsdale, which isn't really dim anymore, called Chloe Carmichael, who is the perfect kid. She's good at school, loves helping people, and always shares and cares. Timmy hates her because they've finally remembered what made Dinkelberg work, but transferred it into a different character, because it's tradition to make pointless additions now. As if things couldn't get any worse for Timmy, Jorgen tells him he has to share his fears with Chloe, even though she isn't a miserable child. The only reason they did this, beyond her sometimes messing things up, poor her, is to shake things up. Honestly, I prefer how they shook things up for Season 11. That season didn't exist, and I like it a lot more than 10 because of that. I mean, what else can you really say about Chloe beyond that very boring character brief? She's very with the times, I guess. She takes selfies and goes a little cray-cray. Her parents are rich explorers, and she's the perfect role model for the good-behaved child. Again, clearly needs fairies to be happy. Her one and only character flaw is that sometimes she can be too perfect, which I'm sure is something anyone can relate to, right? We all have perfect lives, especially children in the 2010s. They had nothing to worry about. I don't think Chloe was a character designed to appeal to anyone in particular. There's an audience for a character like Poof, There's even an audience for a character like Sparky, but Chloe is a tone-deaf addition squirted out just to keep the show going, when it was better off ending years earlier. Speaking of Poof and Sparky, they're no longer really relevant to the story. They made Poof say his first words in season 9, then gave up on him entirely, and Sparky was flat out absent from the entirety of season 10. I'd like to think they listened to fan feedback and wrote him out, but it's significantly more likely that it had to do with behind the scenes turmoil, possibly with his voice actor Maddie Taylor. In universe, I like to imagine they had a season 9 rap party, and someone force-fed him a 50-foot chocolate cake. And if the Bunsen is a Beast crossover made after season 10 is anything to go by, I think Chloe was made as a season 10 exclusive, so whatever development Timmy goes through into liking a person doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Heck, they gave up on a running gag of Filthy being filthy rich by the season's end. I know they would have just kept adding single season characters and gags, and would have slowly become more gimmicks than personalities and jokes people could at least get a reaction out of. The only thing I'm getting a reaction out of is the animation. For the last 7 episodes, they switched from hand-drawn animation from Yesin Entertainment to flash animated puppet rigs from Elliott Animation, and it looks lifeless. Elliott are best known for working on Total Drama, which had fine animation for a Canadian cartoon in 2007, but their style and methods did not work for a long-running series that had an established look and feel, one that had been deteriorating with each season for a while, but the designs still look wrong in this animation style. I've seen a lot of long-running animated series go through peaks and valleys, usually getting worse as they go on, but the last 2 seasons of The Fairly OddParents are just sad. I don't think I've ever seen a cartoon get to this point, where it's lost everything. Let it be known, this is only 172 episodes in total. There have been tons of cartoons that have made more and haven't become anywhere near this soulless. Butch Hartman appears to be one of the only creators at Nickelodeon who could control how long his shows went on, and I'm shocked that he never saw any problems with how his flagship show devolved during his 20-year stay at the corporation. I can believe he, as a showrunner and creative mind, approved of the direction of season 6 and 7 and even 8, but I've lost a lot of respect for him as a creator just based on what he did to the show in 9 and 10. I only liked 1 episode in season 10, 1 out of 37. Chip off the old Croc. Mr. Crocker introduces his nephew, who is by all means a gimmick character with a very cliched story of wanting to be different from his senior, but it kind of works in a bubble. Now on to 7 reasons why I don't want this series to come back. Bummer Summer only really sticks out with Chloe's angel and devil monologues, and the joke about how politically correct her taste in toys are, look at her beliefs and laugh. But that's all it really has. Which is Wish gets some points docked for the title alone, but is otherwise a mile in my shoes in the Fairly OddParents style. The thing is, that's a good episode. This is a way to waste 6 months of 100 lives. I hoped I could be invested in Timmy and Chloe's dynamic at all, but for one thing, most of these episodes are aimless, and the last season gave me trust issues. Nitwits is a pun turned into a Fairly OddParents episode. Filthy and Barnaby... Filthy has a wife. Filthy and Barnaby go on a knighting cruise, but it turns out to be a knitting cruise. That's the peak of the comedy here, woo! Fish Out of Water is an example of one of the biggest problems with the show's endgame, the limited basis in reality. I like my stories to be relatable, and I like Dimsdale when it's actually dim, to contrast with the magical elements. Fish Out of Water doesn't deliver that in any shape or form. Space CADAD is their first Flash episode, one of their first outer space episodes to not be about Yogapotamians, and the first time I felt bad for most of the production team. This is another one of those nonsense episodes, just with Filthy in space. We haven't seen it told in this way before, but that's probably a good thing. Certifiable Supersetter is probably the worst episode you could ever show someone who's never seen the later seasons. It would be completely incomprehensible. Characters just kind of turn up and act dumb. That's the story. Enjoy the jokes we make about kangaroos, Saw, and Donald Trump. This might have been the joke that finally killed them, but not before they made DADLANTIS. Who is this? This is not Filthy. This isn't even the bad Filthy from the later seasons. This is just a puppet that they're using to make bad things happen. I can't believe in this story. Seriously, I can't be invested in what these characters are saying or doing, because it's very clear that the production team has no intention of investing me. If you like these episodes and seasons, I won't bite. I'm genuinely interested in hearing a reason as to how this worked as entertainment, or how you were, at the very minimum, captivated by what they presented. Sorry for the negative tone, but once you've seen these seasons, especially the last two, you really need to find a way to express your feelings on them. The Fairly OddParents ended for good, buried on the Nicktoons network on July 26th, 2017, and was pretty much an animated 110-year-old man. It had lost everyone that had made it what it was, had serious heart problems that led to a slow, painful time on life support, and didn't even break any records for longevity. It makes the show a little more important in the grand scheme of television, but not quite in the way they wanted. The Fairly OddParents will go down in history as a cautionary tale, to let art have a lifespan. Those first 5 seasons are still pretty good. I won't let anything change that from a critical standpoint, even if its father's gotten a bit cuckoo over time. It was imaginative, charming, and fun most importantly. Watching most of the classic episodes feels like a treat. Sitting through many of the later ones feels like a chore. It's very clear when and why they got strapped for ideas, but it's sad that each attempt they made to fix each problem only made the show worse in this ongoing cycle. If anything, I'll say seeing how bad it got, especially in seasons 9 and 10, makes me like the classic run a bit more. You need to appreciate the bad to appreciate the good after all. Not everyone has my mindset though. This stuff could very well ruin the whole show for you forever. And if that's the case, stay away from the HD seasons, and proceed with caution with 6, 7, and 8. There's some good stuff here and there, but it's always going to be a reminder to me of how dry the show is squeezed. What are my hopes for the upcoming live-action reboot? That it's cancelled. Before I put on a more relaxing cartoon, I'll just leave you with this. Be careful with the be careful what you wish for saying. It's so cliche at this point. Anyway, goodbye for now.